me, antibiotic use predicts increased risk of cancer. We have observed an increased risk of death due to cancer with the use of antibiotics. This has been known for a while. No surprise. Here's another study that talks about aspartame and its relationship to bacteria and antibiotics and the increased cancer risk. You can see if you read this article, I won't go into that a lot. And then one more. This is a chart depicting the antibiotic use, the antibiotic and use and link to the risk of cancer. Increased risk of death due to cancer with the use of antibiotics, and there they tell you the increased risk. This was published in August 2008. Increased cancer risk with annual antibiotic use compared with non-users, and they tell you the amount. And then for 1, 2, or 3 years of use, here's the increased risk respectively, and this was published in JAMA. This was related to the risk of breast cancer, and you can go down and actually figure out the exact increase in risk. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to mention this was because some people might claim or might conclude that cancer is a side effect of antibiotics. In other words, an untoward or unexpected or idiosyncratic, sort of unusual effect of antibiotics. But if you think along with the principles that I've been talking about and the principles of new biology for the last number of years, and you realize the role of bacteria, which is to essentially bio-remediate, biodegrade, and remediate the debris of this dead and dying cells and tissues that are made when something has happened to increase the breakdown of the cells and tissues. And the bacteria come to bioremediate, essentially recycle that debris. You realize then that the connection between antibiotic use and cancer is not an untoward or side effect of antibiotic use. It is the predictable and expected repercussion of what happens when you stop the body from cleaning up dead and dying tissue. So there should be no surprise if you stop the fungus and the bacteria from digesting the dead trees. Pretty soon you will have a forest choked with dying trees, and that's exactly what happens in living organisms. If you don't let the bacteria bioremediate the dead and dying tissue, so every time they start to proliferate to essentially do their job, you kill them with antibiotics because you erroneously think you have a bacterial infection, then the only possible repercussion of this would be an increased risk of cancer. Not that everybody who has used or will use an antibiotic once or twice will get cancer, but I would say, always push yourself in that direction. So we want to look for a whole different approach, which actually facilitates what the body is trying to do, which is to biodegrade these dead and dying tissues. And we do that by increasing mucus production, by increasing cough, by binding toxins, by doing, turpentine to bind some of the debris. There's, of course, many different ways to skin a cat, which is a horrible analogy anymore. I used to say that, but I don't like even the thought of skinning cats. But there's a whole lot of ways of doing this. You can do it with homeopathy. You can do it with herbs. You can do it with turpentine. You can do it with sweating. You can do it with fasting. You can do it just by cleaning up your diet. You can do it by examining the traumas and the emotional, psychological points of distress in your life. You can do many of those at once. You can use chlorine dioxide. You can use cell salts to get rid of some of the excess fluid that's causing the breakdown of your tissues. There are many different ways. The important point is thinking properly about what you're doing. And so all of these studies should be no surprise to anybody. Okay, that was the next thing. The next point before I get into